And that's exactly where we're going to start. The Spurs just wrapped up a 5-game homestand, end up going 3-2, two really ugly losses, but some pretty nice wins in there, David. So just what's your overall thoughts on how the Spurs looked over these past 5 games?
They looked really good, and then they looked really bad. So,
is that a scientific evaluation?
That's my analytics analysis. So against Boston and Denver, those are 2 pretty solid teams, and those are 2 pretty solid wins. And then Memphis comes to town. It's like, well, what happened to the way you played against Boston and Denver? Just totally annihilated by those 2. So we won't even talk about Memphis. Forget those 2. And then it seems like they had a little Memphis left in them when they played Minnesota. But they were able to work through that and missing 2 guys. Rudy Gay was out. LaMarcus Aldridge was out. But DeMar DeRozan stepped up once again, pretty much throughout the whole game, but especially in the fourth quarter. And they got a nice win against Minnesota. They got a much-needed win against Minnesota.
That's the best way to describe it. I mean, I don't want to say a must-win, but after those 2 games against Memphis, where really they kind of just got run off the floor. I mean, their own building, their own gym just got waxed by the Grizzlies. I don't know. Yeah, it's funny because you say it kind of like really good, really bad. They looked solid against Boston.
Yeah.
Denver, I mean, as we were saying, just one of the better teams in the league. And then those Memphis games. Now, yesterday, though, Pop did say that he was really kind of impressed that they didn't sort of put their heads down again and didn't let what happened to them from the Memphis games.
And we've talked about that before. They're too young to know that they're supposed to be moping around. They're just out of college, man. They don't mope around all day. They just go play the next game because it's like fun to them. They don't understand that it's like, oh man, we lost.
Yeah.
They don't get that, which is great to see. And that's the thing. And we've talked about that pretty much, through this first part of the season. Is they're going to have their moments where they look like they're completely lost, like they're a bunch of young guys out there running around trying to figure it all out. And then they're going to have their moments where they look like they're older veterans and they know exactly what they're doing, and that's where the veterans come through and kind of guide the young guys. But you're missing 2 veterans against Minnesota.
Yeah.
And they were still able to kind of work their way through. I guess Jakob would be considered a veteran. The way he played against Minnesota
Jakob
was awesome.
Yeah, Jakob was really good. And you know what? Let's go there because we've been talking about LaMarcus Aldridge being out. Pop said yesterday or the day before the Minnesota game that it looks like it's going to be a couple of games that LaMarcus is going to miss. Jakob steps in the Minnesota victory. 19 points, 8 rebounds. Actually had some dunks. Thank you, Jakob, for dunking the ball.
Ooh, about time.
But, just your thoughts on what we've seen from Jakob, because early in the season, he was struggling and he's really kind of bounced back.
I'm going to give us credit because when he was struggling, we kind of got on him a little bit. And since that moment that we got on him, he's turned his game around.
Yeah.
I mean, he has just come full force right at it. So apparently he got the message.
Oh, for sure, for sure. You got that direct line of communication.
Yeah, Jakob, man, you got to do something. So, no, I mean, it took a while, but he's playing. And actually, I think he's playing better than he did last year. I mean, the way if you evaluate him from the Minnesota game, the last couple of games before that, and it's good to see that he's getting some playing time. It's bad that LA's out, but it's good to see him getting some playing time and dunking the ball.
Yeah.
And kind of taking over in the center because blocking shots and playing some defense. I mean, the Spurs. That's been if you want to narrow it down to their biggest problem so far. It's too much Olay defense. I mean, it's like, hey, that's a nice drive down the lane. Whoa, nice layup. What is that?
Jakob being there definitely at least puts a presence in there for teams to think about when they do drive to the basket that this guy is there, and he's a shot blocker. So I think it'll be interesting to see kind of where we move ahead with this. I know there's a larger discussion to be had later about LaMarcus Aldridge and what the Spurs should maybe do with him. He's been...
Because this is the last year of that contract.
Last year of the contract.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
And, do you want to try to get a trade at the end of the season, send him off to a team that's actually, got a chance to win a championship, or do you hold on? I don't know. We'll dive into that.
Problem. Yeah. We'll dive into that
let's get into another pop
segment.
problem.
Okay.
Let's get into another pop problem.
Okay, are we going to talk? Is this the Lonnie?
It's Lonnie, but also if you look at Devin Vassell, I mean, do you want to leave him on the bench or do you want him on the floor? So how are you going to work out all these minutes? Lonnie Walker, let's face it, is struggling. I don't know if it's in his head. I don't know where he's at. But I mean, the numbers show, and just watching him on the floor. I mean, the kid's got some great talent, but he's just flat out struggling these days. Derek White is back. Do you move Derek White back to the starting lineup and put Lonnie Walker on the bench? Do you mess with Lonnie Walker's head if you do something like that? He was off the bench last year some. I mean, but you can't keep getting down by 8, 10, 12, 14 points in the first quarter and have to dig yourself out of a hole. Vassell is a young kid, but he acts like he's been there for a couple of years. He doesn't seem like he's lost on the floor like a lot of rookies would. That's why they picked him at 11, because he knew what he was doing out there on the floor. You hate to see him, suffer playing time and suffer time on the floor because he's just young and ends up in caught in a numbers game. So, I mean, I guess it's a good problem to have when you got that much talent. You don't have to worry about, whoever you put on the floor is going to come through for you. But it would not be surprising at some point if Derek White ends up back in the starting lineup, because more for his defense. They got to start stopping teams.
I think that's
letting these guys get off to these double-digit
That to me is
leads.
the biggest key there, is that you just cannot let teams get off to these hot shooting starts. And Derek is a perimeter defender.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen him. He's the guy who's going to take charges, contest shots. And if you're not getting the offensive production from Lonnie, then it's hard for me to say that he should be on the floor when they're having these defensive issues. So I think that Derek White seems like the logical move, but maybe, as you were saying, Pop just doesn't want to mess with Lonnie's head, because a lot of times, as we've talked about with Lonnie before, it's in between the ears, really. I mean, he's just got to get out of his way sometimes, and you could tell, like, sometimes he's overthinking things, feeling through things. And the Minnesota game, though, only 20 minutes. As you said, Devin Vassell, 20. I think Vassell had about 20 minutes as well. So we're looking at really kind of a minute distribution here.
20 minutes, 7 points, 3 of 6 shooting. Lonnie Walker had 21 minutes, 1 of 10, and 2 shooting against Minnesota. So that's,
and the thing is, we've seen Lonnie. We've seen Lonnie have these games when he looks virtually unstoppable. So, but the Spurs are going to need to get him back.
Yes, I mean, but at some point, and if you go back on the history of Pop, I don't think he really he makes a change because he needs to make a change. He'll worry about the psyche of that one player later and figure out how to deal with that. But if you're getting it handed to you in the first quarter all the time, I mean, you might have to make a change. And there's nothing against Lonnie. I mean, Lonnie's got all the talent in the world. It's just he's just struggling right now. And sometimes you need to make a move and bring him off the bench. I mean, how many times did he mess with Manu Ginobili's head? One day he's starting, next day he's coming off the bench. And
what
Ginobili always said.
It's a different mindset.
It's not if you start it on the floor, it's if you end the game on the floor. And the Manu was always on the floor at the end of the game. So it's not really whether or not you start, it's where you are at the end of the game.
Yeah, and we were talking about earlier, Lonnie, he did not see a minute in that fourth quarter of that Minnesota game. He might have a hand injury. We're waiting to kind of find out more about that. But yeah, definitely the Spurs need to kind of get him on track, because it is a long season and they're playing every other day almost. They finally got a little break here, but Spurs definitely need to take care of Lonnie, because I think he's still going to be a big part of what this team does this season. Yeah.
And you talk about the break. Well, they play Houston in Houston, then they come back and they play the back-to-back 2 nights in a row against Golden State, host Golden State Monday and Tuesday, and then they're off for a few days, and then they go on the rodeo road trip. The rodeo is not in the AT&T Center, but they're still going on the rodeo road trip. So anyway, figure that. I guess the NBA said you can still have the rodeo road trip. So, so I think that's 7 games.
It's something like that. It's February.
That starts like next Friday. So they've got Houston and then Golden State twice. So we'll talk about that. But I want to know what you guys think. I want to know what your opinion is. Should Lonnie Walker keep starting? Should they bring him off the bench? So here's what you do. You email him.
Marquez
and you let
at
him
ksat.com.
Or you tweet him.
I'm on Twitter, at ksat.rj. David as well, D Sears, and also on Twitter. So, just let
us know.
Just let us know your thoughts. It's been an interesting first quarter of the season. Spurs at this point, as of this recording, 12-10. It's hard to look at the standings because they fluctuate so much, but as long as they just continue to beat the teams they're supposed to and get a couple of solid wins along the way, I think that they'll be in.
Are we done? Was that it?
I think we're good. Yes.
You want to talk about?
No, I think we're good. Yeah, I want to have the LaMarcus discussion, but we'll do that at a later point when we get closer to the trade deadline.
Right? Yeah. All right.
Cool. All right. Okay, David, any final thoughts, words?
Go Spurs, go.